We haven't really forayed into early 60s, late 50s rock and roll that much.
We've threatened to.
There's, early on we did some of those like people who influenced the Beatles videos, and some of those are still up somewhere. Don't go finding them.
It's not hard. There is a playlist. It's right there.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Anyway, but anyway, we did some of those things. We talked about Del-Shannon, the Coasters,
Jacket of Shannon.
but really haven't talked about it. And I really love early rock and roll. It's very special. It's something that we were sort of strangely raised on. Our mom was like a perfect age, baby boomer age. She was, both our mom and dad, of course, they're the same age, but they were
Different
14 when the Beatles came, which means they, or at least, our father was in his own world. But, our mom remembered seeing Elvis on Ed Sullivan, and, she was like the perfect age to see all of those things unfold.
Right.
And early rock and roll was, a huge part of her life. And she sort of passed that down to us, singing those songs and, blah, 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 whatever. And
Yes.
but it wasn't until later that I actually really started listening to them. And it was a big deal for me to because we grew up listening to the Beatles so much, and I always loved the early Beatles. So it was like discovering all this music that had influenced the Beatles and had just it was just awesome in its own right.
Yeah, and it gets passed over, and we've said this, before, that there's that divide where like there's the oldies and then there's classic rock.
Yeah,
And I remember those concerts that would be on PBS of all the old doo-wop groups
stuff,
and stuff and like things like that. And so like you wouldn't want to like be classified in that category, like you're not going to be on classic rock radio. So I think a lot of these early rock and roll bands really did, unfortunately, get pushed aside and aren't listened to. Like people aren't going back and listening to Gene Vincent and Del-Shannon and things like that, as Dion, unless you seek it out. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not being recommended. Even Buddy Holly. These huge names. They're not hard to find, but they're just not in front of people. I thank you.
Well, most of those people are dead.
Then they're dead.
Except one.
So
one of those guys is still putting out records.
Well, that's what's so amazing about Dion. The fact that he's still doing it. It's really amazing.
Listening to the Dion and the Belmonts and then his solo records, his first like 5 solo records, just finding someone who became one of my absolute favorite singers. Genuinely one of who I consider, I could say one of the greatest rock and roll singers, but I really actually consider him one of like the top 2.
He's really got some kind of special, amazing, ridiculous voice.
There's just no one has rhythm like him.
And song styling. Yeah.
And
the actual tone of his voice is just luscious and so fun to listen to. But the way he sings is also so interesting. He's got this laid back, almost drawling style sometimes. It's really like no one else.
Lovers Who Wander.
The album in question.
The album that we're talking about, sort of. I guess.
Whatever.
To me, I guess I would consider it. I guess I always sort of considered it the most balanced, I guess, of those records. They pushed them the Bobby Darin direction, which is not. I don't mean that in any disparaging way to Bobby Darin. Love Bobby Darin, but a little bit more nightclub, and he can do that. He could do that, but that's not really him. And Alone with Dion is definitely more of that. But then, Lovers Who Wander, and I skipped over Runaround Sue, but Lovers Who Wander, 62, has just a phenomenal collection of songs. And the original songs that he wrote or co-wrote, I absolutely love and are brilliant. But as a song stylist, there are a few people better. Honestly, I would say every song, except maybe Dream Lover, which is kind of funny,
Is your favorite?
is my favorite version of that song.
Yeah.
Bobby Darin, to me, no one can do Dream Over quite like Bobby Darin, although Dion's version is the first one I probably heard
Yeah.
from Hot Shots.
Very true.
I think the thing that I find very interesting about Dion and Del-Shannon and Gene Pitney and, even Gene Vincent and, I mean, obviously Buddy Holly and Eddie Cochran and is the songs that they wrote. The Everly Brothers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can't leave them out. And, of course, Chuck Berry.
Anyone else?
No, there are. Their songs, the songs that Carl Perkins, the songs that they actually, wrote. Because I think a lot of people have this idea that until the Beatles, no one wrote their own songs. It's not true.
It's very prevalent, that misconception.
And
for sure.
Just on this album, I Was Born to Cry. I was
right.
Born to Cry. Is a highlight of the record, and what an extraordinary song. If nothing else, I mean, it's a song that could only have been written in the Bronx, basically. I mean, it's something that, he wrote when he was, a little bit younger. Sitting outside of like a synagogue, hearing the cantor, incorporating that into this song.
Mm-hmm.
It's so original and unique, and it has such a awesome sound. Little Diane, another one of his that just is so aggressive, and the ascending line,
mm-hmm.
and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it almost reminds me of when I first heard that. It reminded me a little bit of Shake Appeal on Raw Power.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, it had that kind of energy. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it just has, it hits you. It's so cool.
I love Sandy.
Sandy's an amazing
Sandy's
song.
such a good song.
The opening, before it settles into the kind of, doo-wop progression that that it has, but the opening of that is so effective. And Lost for Sure, it's a real early '60s sound. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you've great versions of Come Go With Me. I mean, my favorite version of that. Sorry, Beach Boys, but it is. Sorry, Del Vikings, but it is.
So much fun to listen to him sing.
And, of course, I mean, Dion, his influence on a couple of people. We just talked about Billy Joel. I really, I hear that especially, actually, like later.
Later, Dion's
later,
like
60s,
early
70s
albums,
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like really sounds like some of that. Of course, Lou Reed, Paul Simon. I mean, a lot of the New York guys. I mean, it's. I think a lot. What we're sort of saying, and that's probably the only real point of this video is.
Here's the nugget. It's a chicken nugget. Sorry.
I don't. A lot of these guys just have to sort of settle for like being influences. Which is not fair, because this music is just flat out awesome on its own.
Yes.
And should be accepted and taken on its own terms, I think.
Yeah, I could have said that in the beginning.
Anyway,
that's true.
I'm just, I just think this is one of the best rock and roll albums. And sort of like something I've probably said before, I have no idea. But I know I said it before in my life.
Say it now.
You could take like Gene Vincent and Dion, and like there are rock and roll albums that you could, if you didn't know what rock and roll was, you could take them and reconstruct rock and roll. Like you could figure out what it was by listening to like the first 5 Gene Vincent records, or even the first several Dion records. I mean, we take Dion the Belmonts, and I also think that with the Ramones, the first Ramones albums. But whatever.
That's a video. Stop. Sorry. Don't give it away.
Buddy Holly and Eddie Cochran have been dead for, 70, 60. So how long is it?
A million years.
They've been dead for 60 years. Gene Vincent for 50 years. And this guy's still putting out albums. And it's just so wonderful that he's still around. Still
literally
so vital.
like the only one.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, he was rather young, which helps, but he's not terribly young now.
Everyone gets older.
That's true, Jenna.
Time goes by.
I'm older from when we started this video. A lot older.
You don't look it.
Anyway, I do want to talk about some of this music more.
Not now.
And it'll get all maudlin, because we'll talk about, our folk. Yes, and how sensitive we are to our own misfortunes.
I laugh so I don't cry.
I sneeze so I don't. Anyway.
All right. Thank you so much for watching our brief discussion of Dion. Let us know what you think of this album in the comments. Make sure to like this video. Please subscribe to States and Kingdoms, and we'll see you next time.